You ready?
Oh, are we recording?
Yeah, let's do this. Welcome back to Critic and the Common Man, episode number 5. Our quintuple, whatever it is. Our 5th episode. A little bit different today. We are going to be doing a TV episode, first TV episode. 2 awesome shows today. Number 1, Space Force.
Space Force.
Everybody's been talking about it. Everybody's been watching it. And then number 2, we are reviewing specifically the second season, but we are going to be talking about Altered Carbon.
Yes, and I'm sure we're going to dive into season 1 as well.
Oh, of course. You have to. Yeah, you have to. But 2 awesome TV shows today. So, episode number 5, Critic and the Common Man coming at you with a TV episode. As always, this is your spoiler warning. We give them out every episode. If you haven't seen Space Force and you haven't seen Altered Carbon, specifically season 2, but if you haven't seen Altered Carbon at all, go ahead and click away, watch them, come back.
Jump on that. Go watch it. Come on.
That's right.
They're cool.
2 Netflix shows today. Space Force, of course, is on Netflix, and Altered Carbon season 1 and 2 can be found on Netflix as well.
Yes.
Awesome show. Let's start off with Space Force. This show had so much buzz.
Yeah.
For the past couple months. I mean, I saw ads and stuff popping up for it on Facebook for a while. And people were kind of hoping this would be the new Office. It's Steve Carell's newest project. And it's not. It's definitely not the new Office, but no. I think to me, it's just as good. It's unique. It's the new Space Force. Chris, what'd you think of it?
I actually really enjoyed it. I went into it a little hesitant. And yeah, I'll admit that, like, even by like the end of episode 1, I was still like, do I want to continue watching this? It was a little, the humor felt a little forced at times. It didn't have that, I don't know, that subtle humor that like The Office and Parks and Rec has. And it was a lot of Steve Carell being Steve Carell. Just kind of being his weird self. But the more I watched it, and I like the little... the jokes that they put in, kind of to underscore the show. They put in all these like science jokes and stuff like that. They make me chuckle, and the more I kind of watched it, and I just kind of allowed myself to just kind of be immersed into this really strange branch of the military. I started to like it a lot more, and by the end of the first season, I really hope there's a second season, because I want to know what happens at the end there.
I know, and I hate saying this because I feel like this is the classic cop-out that everybody gives you when they recommend something, but I honestly mean it with this show. Get through the first episode, give it a chance. Yep. If you didn't love the first episode, honestly, I didn't either. It was a little bit of a slow start to the TV show. Yep. They're kind of throwing the characters at you. I didn't love it after the first episode, but after the second episode, I was pretty hooked. And the characters kind of set into themselves a little bit. John Malkovich really takes over as an incredible character, incredible acting in this show, as always. And then for the rest of the season, I was hooked. I ended up binge watching this thing in like 3 days.
Wait, is that the character's name?
No. So John Malkovich plays Dr. Mallory, so the head scientist,
but
just the actor's name. Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Oh, he's great. Yeah. He's got such an interesting voice. Like the physicality behind his voice.
He does. And his like pacing at which he speaks in the show is off, and it's a little weird, but it totally works for some sort of brilliant astrophysicist, scientist, whatever he's supposed to be.
Who is also a very well-dressed man.
Yeah, a very well-dressed man, definitely. But let's talk about this as the new Office, because I was already like, dude, this show had been out for like 2 days, and I was already seeing people ragging on this thing on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, and they're like, this is not the new Office, this show sucks. Look, get that out of your head before you even watch it. They're not trying to make this the new Office. It's got Steve Carell in it, yes, and Fuck Tony's character, who I know was in Parks and Rec, is kind of a similar character to what he was in Parks and Rec, but this is not the Office. Okay,
he's got a little more heart.
It's definitely got a little bit more heart. It's a little bit darker, it's a little more real, a little more visceral, I think. But yes, Steve Carell has attributes of Michael Scott that you can kind of pick up on, just being sort of a goofy, kind of lovable character, but way more competent in Space Force, I would say. Now, he's still a goofy guy. He still makes mistakes. But I would say that Colonel Naird, or General Naird, excuse me, was way more competent than Michael Scott if you were to look at those characters on a level playing field. So if you're trying to compare this to The Office, just don't go into it with that. Or if you watched it, you got to get that out of your head because it's clearly a very different show.
Yeah,
the characters. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, you can't. It's such a you're starting off on the wrong foot if you're going into a show trying to compare it to another show, when both of these shows are so completely different. One takes place in like a corporate work environment, and like sure, there's like corporate aspects to Space Force, but there's a lot more to it. It's obviously making fun of
poking, yeah,
sure, picking fun at it, man. It's obviously poking fun at the military aspect of there some of these people that are in the Space Force are so incompetent. They even make a joke about it. He says most of these people are either right out of boot camp or they're super old scientists. That's what the branch is made up of at this point. And you have to be able to see it separately. This is its own show. Steve Carell did The Office, but now he's in this, and you have to kind of go into everything that you watch always with an open mind, and allow yourself to truly ask yourself whether or not you are going to be immersed in this.
Yeah, I don't know if Steve Carell is ever going to be able to shake that character of Michael Scott, or even his characters in Anchorman and stuff. It's like he's so constantly playing this like just kind of dumb, goofy, incompetent guy that it's like really hard for him to shake out of that role and be somebody who you kind of respect. And he's not that serious in Space Force, obviously. You all watched it. He's still a funny guy. He's still a little bit goofy. But I would say that Space Force is a much smarter show than The Office.
Yes.
Like there's absolutely a lot more intellectual conversation. It's about space, which just space travel in itself is kind of a complex subject. One of the main characters in Dr. Mallory, he's a head scientist working for the Space Force branch of the government. So this show overall is just a way more intellectual show than The Office. It's still funny.
Yeah, it is. I was laughing a lot by as the episodes went on, but it's also at the heart of it, it's about a family guy who is a general who's trying to keep his family together while also having to make these incredibly difficult decisions as a 4-star general. It's at times it gets really sad where you feel for his character, because on an individual level, there's so many people who are relying on him, and not just in the military side, but also like his family, his daughter, his wife. Yep. And he's trying to deal with that at the same time. He's trying to deal with Russian spies and Chinese destroying our flag on the moon. Like, it's just it's hard. And you do start to feel for the character, because there's a couple moments where he kind of starts to lose it. And
yeah, he does. So this show, just to get that out of the way, obviously, if you're still comparing the show to The Office, and even if you watch the whole thing and then you're still comparing it to The Office in terms of how funny it was or how good it was, I think that's the wrong comparison to make. I understand it's got Steve Carell in it, but let's look at the show as an individual show. Sure, it's got Steve Carell in it, but we're not looking at this as The Office. We're looking at this as its own thing. It's completely separate, completely unique. There's no like references to Michael Scott. There's nothing like that. Like, they're not, this is completely different. It's a completely different thing. Steve Carell branched out to do a kind of different project, and I loved it. I thought it was really funny. And again, after you get through the first episode, which I know is what everybody says about every show, once you get through that first episode, I ended up binge watching the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get enough of it, and I really hope they make a season 2.
I was literally up until like 3 a.m. because I couldn't stop watching it.
Yeah. Dude, did you hear that the United States Space Force, I think, is entering a lawsuit with the creators of this show, Space Force, because they never went to them for like fair use of the name or anything like that. Like, it would be like somebody making a TV show called U.S. Army. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know, like, I don't know where the legal boundary is there. Yeah.
You never had the government back in the 70s being like, hey,
right.
Well, actually, I don't know.
But it's something. It's something. Well, yeah, they may have. It's something about the naming. I got to look into the. I think this is kind of a new thing, and I don't know if it actually has any ground. It might just kind of fizzle out. But I saw an article, which of course, is true because
right,
it's online.
If it's on the internet. Yeah.
I saw an article that the United States Space Force is actually entering a lawsuit against the creators of that show because of some sort of likeness in name, or I'll have to look more into it, but keep an eye on that, because that might mess with the season 2 potentially.
I feel like that's just gonna fuel people wanting to watch the series. Like that's.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, come on, it's clearly like, what are they worried about? That somebody's gonna take something they see in that show for like its realness and think that's actually what's going on.
The Chinese ran over our flag with a rover.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This show is another one where, fortunately, I actually thought it was cast very well. Steve Carell, because has such a hard time shaking that Michael Scott character, I was a little worried coming into this that they were going to try to make him the exact same character, and that he was just going to be overly goofy, overly dumb. He was not really going to be very competent. But I actually really liked him as General Naird, and as a father.
Yeah, what's different about it is that whereas shows like Parks and Rec and The Office and a lot of situational comedies like that, they'll bring characters in and make them dumb just to make them dumb and give us laughs.
Yeah.
While this show had those weird people in it, but I like that it was grounded because other people were calling him out on their own stupidity. Like, I can't believe you just said that kind of thing. So it kept the show on our level as opposed to us having to suspend our disbelief that, like, why is this person actually working for the military?
It was really nice. It was really nice, too, to have, and I think what helped with that was having John Malkovich alongside Steve Carell.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
I think that's polar opposites in kind of the energy and the charisma that they bring to the screen. Whereas Steve Carell can be kind of goofy and almost a little too dumb, John Malkovich has a very acute intelligence, and it translates very well to the screen. And I think they sort of balanced each other out really well.
Yeah.
Because here's Steve Carell, kind of the goofy, making bad decisions, not super intelligent kind of general. And then on the other hand, you have Dr. Mallory, John Malkovich, who is very grounded, very smart, very well-spoken and articulate. And when they came together, they were phenomenal.
Yeah, and the interactions between the characters, too.
Yeah, were fantastic. They had great character together. So what insight by the director of this show or the producers of this show in casting to bring those two together and for it to work like that. I thought they were excellent together, and I would absolutely love to see them together in a season 2.
Yeah. I really like the moments that they had together on like a character development level. Like where he thought that Dr. Mallory was a spy, and then because he'd sent an encrypted email, and then it turns out it was like a love song that he had sent to somebody else, and
right.
Just that whole moment where he is basically apologizing to him, and like there's just that they have a respect for each other even though they disagree a lot. And I don't know, I really liked that these two characters being polar opposites, which they totally were still very close. Like he goes tie shopping with him because he respects his opinion. I think it's important to show that you can be different and still be friends. Like it's I think it's a good message.
I liked that they were sure to put a mutual respect between the two characters. Like it wasn't for the people looking for office references, it wasn't like it wasn't like Steve Carell was Michael Scott and Dr. Mallory was Toby, where they just hated each other. Or, he just hated him because, he's a nerd scientist, blah, blah, blah. And then, Dr. Mallory just thought, this guy's totally an idiot. There was a mutual respect in their characters, and I thought that really gave them excellent character together, and it really kind of helped the show along in a way that I liked. You end up liking both General Naird and Dr. Mallory more because of that.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they kind of work together in the end of a lot of these episodes.
And it makes them real. It makes them characters that we can relate to.
Very real.
They're not perfect. This is a 4-star general that disobeys orders at times. He's having to struggle with his wife being in prison, what did she do?
We don't know.
40
we don't
to
know.
60 years in prison.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
in the
that's an
world?
interesting point. We don't know. No, we don't know, and they did that on purpose because the whole time, of course, and everybody did this, but the whole time my wife and I were watching this, we're going, well, "What the hell did she do? Why is she
Yeah,
in prison?"
because there was six
And you
months
keep
right
asking that.
between.
I think so. Yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, you don't know, and you're not supposed to know. I don't think because obviously they would have told you. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
sort of a question that leads unanswered into season 2, which is fine.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
okay with me.
It is what
So
Alfred
what did you
Hitchcock
think?
would call a MacGuffin. All right.
A MacGuffin?
Yeah, it's like it's a piece of the story that drives the plot forward, but you're not supposed to know because knowing what it is doesn't matter. Kind of like in, I think it's Pulp Fiction, where they have the thing in the trunk, and every time they open the trunk, it's always
Like
from the
glows
trunk's point of
gold.
view. Right? Yeah, but you have no idea what it is. You never see it.
I like that. A
Because it doesn't
MacGuffin. I've
matter
never heard of that before.
what it is. All that matters is that they have to move it. That's
Right, and yeah, they have to move it, and that they're interested in it.
yeah.
Clearly. So let's stay on the casting for a minute because I want to talk about the other characters in this show
Yes.
too. So obviously General Naird and Dr. Mallory, we both kind of agree, very well cast,
Yes.
very good acting, very interesting characters. What about the rest of the casting? What did you think for this one? Did you like it, or did you pick out some characters you didn't care about so much?
So I actually really liked. I believe his name was Chan, the the Asian
Yeah, he's
scientist kid.
hilarious.
He
Yep,
is
yep. Jimmy Yang.
my
Jimmy Yang.
favorite in that series, dude. He was
Yeah.
so funny. Like
He's perfect. So he's a comedian. He's also a stand-up
Yes.
comedian and a very successful one. He's got a special out right now on.
I thought it was
I'll
Amazon.
have to look. It's either it may be Amazon. It could be Netflix. It's definitely not Disney Plus, but we'll have to check. But if anybody's interested, you can actually find him, Jimmy Yang. You can find a special of him somewhere out there, either Netflix or Amazon, and he's really funny. I would recommend you go give that a watch too.
Other than him, I don't remember the girl's name, but she's the black girl who's the first
Oh,
one on the
Ali.
moon. What was her
Yeah,
name?
yeah, Ali. What was her status? She was Captain
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ali. What or
But
Ali
I
or
can't remember her
Ali,
character's
wasn't it?
name.
It was no, I think that was her character's name. They just like her first name. I don't. Oh, Angela. Angela.
Angela. Yeah, man, like that moment when she's overthinking what she's gonna say on the moon, and she's like, you know what, I'm gonna go with it's. I can't. It's just so funny. It was just so funny. Like, it's good to be black
Yeah,
on the moon.
It's good to be black on the moon. God damn it.
it.
They have really good chemistry together too. The two of those characters, Angela and Chan,
Yes.
have really good chemistry together
Yes.
too. They were a good couple, and I like that we see them come together, and it's kind of an assumed thing there at the end, the way they're talking to each other and stuff, that they're kind of a
thing.
pair. But obviously, when this season leaves off, she's on the moon.
Yes.
In kind of a predicament, and he's still obviously on Earth. So I'll be interested to see what they do with that in season 2 as well.
And I
do like them together.
I like the foreshadowing that they did there when he mentioned in like 2 episodes or 3 episodes earlier, when he was like, black people and Asians make the best couples. We have we have the lowest amount of interracial marriages, but the highest
When they find each other, it's true
marriage
love, and it's
retention rate or
beautiful.
something. Yeah, like so when they started talking, I was like, wait a minute.
Oh my gosh. What was the name? Holy cow. I got to say, I really liked the casting for this show, but there was one guy that it was like nails on a chalkboard listening to him talk. Was it Duncan? Was that his name? The kind of country
like the sergeant? Yeah.
soldier? Oh my God.
Yeah.
What is going on with that? Is that how that dude actually talks, or is that just what
Probably.
they wanted his character to do?
Maybe.
Oh man. That was brutal. I was listening to that guy talk, and I could not stand it. I was like, spit it out, dude.
Yeah, that
He was driving me nuts.
I actually really liked his little interaction with Aaron.
At the Froyo stand.
Yeah, I thought that was cute because there was obviously some sexual tension there, but
Yeah.
yeah, as the more I got to see him in the episode, like his character really served no purpose to the story.
Yeah, he was rough. He was rough. He was kind of hard to watch, but I do think overall the casting on this was pretty spot on.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of Naird's wife, and obviously she's a big name. I always forget her character's name in Friends.
Oh, Phoebe
forget what
Buffet,
her-
but I forgot her.
Phoebe.
I forgot the
Lisa
actress.
Kudrow, and Maggie. Yeah, Maggie was her name in the show. That was an interesting pick, but
Yeah,
okay, I'll kind of accept it. It was kind of interesting to see her in that role.
I think when you have a character who's going to be asking their husband for an open marriage so that she can have relationships with women in prison, which is
Yeah,
already just weird on a script level, I think that there's very few people who would make that work, and I don't know. I think people just kind of relate her to being that weird character, and so they were hoping that um, it would help tie in that that people would be like, oh, it's Phoebe. I think this will work.
right,
What
kind
she's
of
asking is
goofy
completely normal. Um,
space cadet, no pun intended, kind of
yeah, yeah.
character. Yeah,
But I did like that they were talking about that, um, and and what I mean is that I like that she, as a character, spoke to her husband about open marriages because that is something that you don't see in television, and it's kind of showing the direction that television is going, and a much more progressive, that these are things that need to be talked about, kind of a thing. She not
yeah,
only
a
mentioned
little more
open marriage, but
unfiltered.
she mentioned that she was bisexual. It's
Yep.
it's a very progressive direction to take things, because when I heard her asking her husband, like, no, I don't want to get a divorce, but I would like to see other people, I was like, whoa, that's a really strange thing to put into a show.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because it's actually a very progressive show. I mean, not only with
Absolutely.
Maggie's character, but then with Dr. Mallory being openly gay in this show.
Yes.
But it's interesting because there's a contrast where it's a very progressive show, but it's also a very militaristic show. And
Yeah.
maybe militaristic is not the right word because I don't mean like intense, but I mean there's tons of military theming in this show. So maybe militaristic is not at all the right
Yeah, yeah,
vocabulary
I
to
know what
use
you
there.
mean.
But
It's
there's a lot like they're calling people by their rank, and they're talking about like they're using acronyms for a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of things in this show that I think you would appreciate the most if you were either a current or former member of the military. So it's kind of an interesting dyad there between the show being very progressive in one sense, which it is, also being a very scientific show, but then being sort of I can't even say conservative because that's not fair to just say that because it has military theming, it's conservative. The military has come a long way in how progressive it's being, but it's got a lot of military theming on one end, but then you're right, it is a very progressive show on the other end. So it was very interesting to see that combination in this.
it's
Um,
it's funny though, because the show also takes a lot of stabs at our current president, and it's just
it does,
like they're
absolutely.
not
You
even
never
trying to
see
hide it.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never actually see them. They're
No.
not that bold. They don't like try to make some Donald Trump look-alike or something like that. It's
No.
nothing like that. But absolutely, they're pretty open about taking jabs at the
Yeah,
president
and they
and
don't.
how
They
he's
never
kind
call
of
him the president. They call him POTUS
right.
the
POTUS.
entire time.
That's right. POTUS, FLOTUS. Yeah, you
Yeah,
get some
yeah.
references in there. And of course, FLOTUS is all about uniforms for the Space
I
Force,
didn't
and the
get
ones
that.
she
Is that
sends
who
are
they were talking to?
ridiculous. Yeah, it was FLOTUS, I
Oh my
believe. It was the
God,
FLOTUS.
that
It was FLOTUS's office. So I don't know if they were actually supposed to be talking to Melania or whatever, but it was the office of FLOTUS. So it
Oh
was
my
like her
God, that makes it
assistant.
so much funnier that, like, all these stupid
I know.
uniforms. All right, yeah.
Yeah, and I know, and they were ridiculous. Those
Yeah.
uniforms.
And I love that moment when he's like walking past, like where he's like, "Hey, like, what's his name, Ben?"
Yeah,
Where he's like, "You look tired. Let's take the elevator." And he, like you, what's his name? The general. What is his character's name?
Oh, General Naird?
Yeah, but what's I for some reason I just want to call him by his first name, but yeah,
Oh, I don't remember his first name in this show, honestly. Mark Naird. Or
Mark.
Steve Carell, if you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about the
yeah,
actual
yeah.
actor.
But that was just so funny when Mark is just he doesn't even register any of the uniforms or anything. Gets into the elevator, making no eye contact with anybody, and then just you're gonna get rid of those first thing in the morning. Like that was just the best.
He pulls him out. He's like, "You look like someone out of the Greatest Showman soundtrack."
Yeah.
He's got like the circus-looking uniform.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god.
The movie might have been terrible, but
Um,
that soundtrack was dope.
Yeah, that was great. I think, yeah, this one was interesting how it had kind of that essence of realness in there, and not just from the like progressive standpoint, but also from the scientific standpoint.
Yes.
They're not really afraid to talk about the scientific theming of this show and space as a topic. And there was actually, this was a high budget show. They obviously were really banking on this to be successful because, dude, like I did not expect them to spend as much time like in space and basically in CGI.
The CGI was great.
What's the special? It was fantastic in this. The whole episode with the chimp and the dog, as horrible as that was.
I forgot
and
about
it was
that.
horrible. It was horrible. But dude, I mean, give credit where credit's due. The graphics on that were phenomenal.
Yeah, they were. I love that.
But also the way that they're like,
banana.
The way
No
they're
sea
interacting
banana.
with that. Where banana? No sea banana.
Where banana?
But the way even that chimp is interacting with his environment, like that felt very real.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can only get him to stop when he points at something that we want him to. We can't make him point. It's still a chimp at the root of it all. It's not a human being. His rationale is limited, but they were not. They didn't shy away from pulling some real science into this either.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
With the testing and with the topics in space travel and some of the challenges they were facing. I loved it. This show was right up my alley. It was funny. Too. It was very real. It was intellectual. The characters were phenomenal. I thought the casting was really, really good. I was really happy with it. I really hope they make a season 2. And I think that people who are looking at this show as a comparison to The Office and thinking, oh, there's no Jim and Pam, there's no, Toby, there's no this or that, it just sucks. I think you're missing the point on that. You got to look at this as a different show. You don't have to like it.
You're missing the opportunity to watch a very good show.
Yeah, agreed.
I think, I completely agree with what you said. It's funny, it's intelligent, it's progressive. It's just a really good time to just sit down and watch, especially after the first episode, once you're getting used to the character and all the other characters too. But I really liked all the interactions with all the characters. They did a very good job of taking secondary characters and kind of blending them into the main storyline. Like with Angela's character, I was like, okay, like why are we following this, this captain? Like we don't know anything about her, and then slowly she ends up becoming the first black person and also the first woman on the moon in this. And
that's right.
It just they just did a very good job in with the writing, which I thought was it's really hard to do. Television writing is in my opinion much harder to do than movie writing, and they did a great job.
Every episode the whole theme of it switches. Mm-hmm. Like in a movie, there's kind of one main storyline, and in a TV show, it's like you're looking at whether it was 10 episodes or 8 episodes or whatever it was. So
10.
you're looking at 10 almost distinct plots with like the main overarching theme tied into each one. I mean, I can imagine that would be way harder.
And you're given a shorter amount of time to tell the story.
Right.
And it has to have a beginning, middle, and end, but also end on a note that makes you interested to watch the next episode.
Yeah, very true.
I like the moments where he was singing too, like that.
Oh my gosh! See, it's funny that you say that because that bothered me.
Did it really?
I don't know why.
Really?
Just like, what is going on? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's because I relate to that character because I sing a lot, dude. Like if you ever drive by me in the car, I am sorry. That's all I'm gonna say.
Out in there.
Yeah, I sing it. I blast my music. I sing at the top of my lungs. For me, music is a very cathartic experience for me, and so I guess I kind of relate to him on that level. Not that I don't sing in public; that's a little weird. But I thought it was really. I don't know. I just thought it was clever, and I like that the song is kind of tied into a little bit of what he was feeling and just can give you a little more insight into his character, especially some of the songs that he was singing that had to do with like raising his daughter, songs that they would sing when she was younger. It was sweet.
It was. I wonder, and I'd be really interested to be able to talk to somebody who's either in the Space Force or has some inside information.
Yeah.
I wonder how similar this show is to what's actually going on in the Space Force. And I know, obviously, this show's a dramatization of all of that. It can't be that goofy.
As their work uniforms.
Oh my God. It can't be that crazy. But at the same time, you're talking about an entirely new branch of the military, and I'm sure they're bringing in insanely competent people from all branches, the Air Force, Navy, Army, Marines, whatever they need. But this is kind of uncharted territory, and Absolutely. I really do wonder in real life how the Space Force functions, and if there is some just kind of goofiness. Like, you see them testing rockets and it blows up, and he's like, how much did that cost? He's like, $4 million. 4 middle schools.
4 middle schools.
That's how much it would have cost to open 4 new middle schools. He's like, fuck.
Yeah, fuck.
So I do wonder how much of that is obviously it's a dramatization, but I do wonder how much of that is kind of true. Like, there's just sort of some nonsense going on, and they're worrying about things like the uniform, whereas they got people up in space floating around and trying to figure things out. I also wonder how much truth there is in kind of the space race, if you will, between us and China or Russia, and as portrayed in that show, where, I mean, obviously them running over the American flag was a little extreme. I don't think anything like that would happen, but just this kind of hostility that's going on, and sabotage of satellites and whatnot. I wonder how much of that is genuine and how much of that is just complete fantasy.
Well, I mean, you have to think that up until a couple weeks ago, a month ago, we have always had to buy a seat from the Russians on their space shuttles in order to get to the International Space Station. And so I think the space race is very much... I feel like we're so behind as a country in the space race. Like, calling it a race is really sad, but
it's not so much of a priority anymore.
No, it's not, because I think in the mind of America, we're like, well, we went to the moon. What else is there? There's a whole universe.
Let's go to Mars.
Yeah,
exactly. Let's go to Mars. Make something next. But well, you got to think too. I mean, we're so dependent on this satellite network that we have set up for all of our, a lot of our broadcasting and networking, and even, internet, these kind of things, all these things that get beamed up into these satellites that we've created, this web. If somebody were to militarize a satellite and start strategically taking those down, GPS satellites, navigation, climate, weather satellites, if these start going down, could put your country at serious risk.
Oh, yeah.
So there is a kind of a newfound race going on to maybe not assert dominance, even though that's probably what's going on in office right now. They're trying to assert dominance, but just to at least make sure that we're able to defend the assets that we currently have going on in space. But with that, there's trial and error. There's going to be that error. And I wonder how much of it, when you're watching the show, the Space Force show, obviously they make it really goofy, and it's a comedy. But I'll bet you it's not as far off as we might think it would be compared to what's actually going on out there. There's probably a lot of politics and a lot of nonsense going on to try to figure out what to do.
And a lot of people's opinions. You see in the show how the general's own opinion affects his decisions, for better or for worse. And so, yeah. Now, here's the thing, though, is I find it difficult to try and give a show a rating.
Well, and it's a little hard. I think with a show, it's almost more so like, would you watch another season, and would you recommend it to people, basically? Yeah. So what do you think? I mean, would you watch season 2, and would you recommend the show to people who maybe haven't seen it yet?
Absolutely. I think if you're into science, and if you're looking for a funny show that's also smart in the way that it's written, it's a cleverly written show. I absolutely would watch a second season, and if you're into that kind of a show, I would absolutely recommend it. But I feel like giving the show a score would have to be on like an episode to episode basis.
That's fair.
It's hard to kind of rank a show when a couple episodes could be terrible, but overall the show was good. I wouldn't say that Game of Thrones was the worst show ever, but everybody was super disappointed with the last season. So, it's kind of hard to do that. But yeah, I would absolutely recommend this. So if you guys are into that, especially if you're into astronomy or space travel, if you're into science, but you're also a stand-up comedian, you should watch it.
That's a real narrow audience.
If you are
pitch that show to.
Yeah. If you are a stand-up comedian already,
comedian,
most of our viewers are out.
Yeah, people are like, well, what the hell, man? No, I really liked it, and I'm sorry to do this because I know everybody does this about every show. I won't do this, I promise, when we keep reviewing TV shows, but I am doing this for this show. get through the first episode if you haven't watched it. If most of you who are watching this review, it's because you have watched it, so hopefully you agree. Or maybe you don't, and you can comment down below. But you get through the first episode of the show, and it's kind of rough. You're figuring out what the characters are. You get through the second episode. I ended up binge watching the whole thing in like a matter of 2 days. Yeah. I loved it. I already wish there was more, which is it's kind of the problem with like the Netflix model where they release a whole season of a show at once.
Yeah, because then you're like, well, now do I watch?
You end up watching the thing in 2 days. Yeah, exactly. But I absolutely would recommend this show to anybody. If you haven't seen this, please do me a favor and see it. But if you have seen it and maybe you're thinking, oh, I didn't really like it, or I wouldn't recommend it, again, make sure you're not trying to compare this to The Office, because that's not what they were going for. Steve Carell can do other things.
I would like to know why. If you, like, just in general, if you disagree with our opinions, I want to know why. Not because I want to like debate or anything. I just want to see. I want to know. I want to know where our opinions differ and what things some viewers might be looking for, and some viewers are, like us, are looking for something different. I want to know what everybody's interest and scope of interest in anything that we watch is. It's intriguing to me. I'm curious. Tell me why. So.
Yeah, totally. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes and you want to jump on over to the YouTube comment section for this video, or if you're watching this video on YouTube, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you thought, because we both really liked it. I've recommended this show to multiple people already, and I'll continue to do so. I thought it was really funny. I really liked the characters. I liked the chemistry, the casting. I thought it was a great show, and I really hope, unless they get shut down by the government, I really hope that we get a season 2 sooner rather than later. Yeah. I'm interested.
Agreed.
Cool. All right, so that's it. If you haven't watched it, go watch it now. And if you have watched it, let us know what you think down below. That is the Critic and the Common Man review of Space Force. You can find season 1, of course, on Netflix now. You guys all know that. And when you're done binge watching Space Force, you can jump over to the next show we're going to talk about, which is very much a tonal shift, also very sci-fi-ish, but man, if you guys haven't seen this show, holy cow. Yep. We're going to talk about a show called Altered Carbon. Hopefully, if you're watching this, it means you've seen it. Again, this is your spoiler warning if you haven't. Let's specifically talk about Season 2, but of course, you can't do that without bringing in Season 1. So, specifically Season 2, let's get into it, Chris. What did you think of Altered Carbon Season 2?
So, it's funny because this is a show that I think I mentioned a few times, and it wasn't until we started to do this podcast where you were like, okay, I guess, I'll watch it. Because, it's really hard to describe what the show is about. It is very much a cyberpunk show. And when you talk about anything punk, steampunk, cyberpunk, dieselpunk, any like that, you automatically, at least for me, my brain kind of fades away to like Comic-Con conventions and I just see, a bunch of people dressed up in, like Space Marine uniforms and stuff. It's hard to separate yourself from like the fan generated stuff and see something as a serious show when you consider that it's a cyberpunk show. Like I think about the video game, and I think, and so I think it's important to kind of make that distinction that this is a book that is a cyberpunk book. It's very much a niche. It's a theme, but the tone of it and the themes that it touches on and the world that this show has created and that the book created is very dark. It is at times difficult to watch because of the content, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve to be watched. Hey buddy, yeah, you're gonna knock over the camera, and sorry, hang on. Hey Marcy, up. Thank you. Stop.
The viewers will not be pleased.
The viewers will not be pleased.
What command?
But look at your
what
face.
Command?
Look at your face.
So this obviously is an extremely dark show, but I thought specifically Season 2 much less so than Season 1. This jump from Season 1 to Season 2, to its dismay a lot of times in my opinion, but man, talk about a complete tonal shift to a TV show in like every way.
Now, and here's the thing, I completely agree with you. I think Season 1 was stronger. I also remember mentioning to you that the cinematography was incredible in Season 1. I didn't like it as much in Season 2, and so I did some research, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think Season 1 and Season 2 have different directors.
I would not be surprised at all, because it almost almost feels like you're watching two different shows.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I'm saying almost because clearly you're not. But, everything in the show changes. And that's a big risk to take. Now, I heard somebody once say that successful shows should never be afraid to kill off a character or change characters. And that's a pretty bold statement. If you look at some of the really successful shows in history, Doctor Who had different doctors throughout the years. Now, you have each one for a while. There's been a few other shows, I guess, that can get away with killing off some main characters and continuing on with the series. And so that's a bit of a bold statement. I don't know if I agree with that. Let us know down below what you think about that, because the idea that you have to be able to kill off a character and still be able to make a good show, I think the characters are what drives the show sometimes. But everything about this show changes from season 1 to season 2. And unfortunately, I think in almost every way, I think for the worse.
Yes.
I was enthralled with season 1. Even just in the tone of it, it's kind of a murder mystery, very dark, very sexy, very graphic, very intense. And the characters were very intense also, and I thought they weakened the character choices in season 2. I don't mean any offense to any of those actors or actresses. Everyone's phenomenal, but let's just go through really quick, and everything about this show basically changed. So let's just talk about the characters for a second, and we'll go through and talk about their changes, and then we'll get back to kind of the plot and the tone and the cinematography. But so just characters. Let's talk about the main character first, obviously, Takeshi Kovacs. Let's talk about him and his change from who he was, who was playing him, and now I don't remember the guy's name. Let me look. Who was playing him in season 1, and then who was playing him in season 2? Because, it was Chris Connor. Wasn't it? No, that was Poe. Sorry. I don't remember the guy's name that played him in the first one. Joel Kinnaman or something like that. And then obviously in the next one, it was Anthony Mackie. So let's talk about Takeshi Kovacs and his change from season 1 to season 2. What did you think about the new Kovacs compared to Riker, if you will?
It's funny because just because of the premise of the show, I don't feel like I was separated from the character. I accepted it. I mean, even in the very beginning, the first episode, within a few minutes, you realize that Takeshi is in a female sleeve. And if you haven't seen the show and you're watching this for whatever reason, you're like, I want to know what season 2 is about. Okay, long story short, this whole series is about a future where we can put on somebody else's body. Like, we can transfer our consciousness to a disc, and that disc can get put into other people's bodies. So just from that point, I don't feel like I was separated from the characters, because I understood that it was something that is built into the world inherently. And so I was willing to accept that, okay, he's in a new body, because we already saw him in like 2 or 3 different bodies in the first season as well. And so I don't feel like I lost the character. I was actually excited to see Anthony Mackie play Takeshi, because I thought it was an interesting choice to go from the Falcon to something as heavy and dark as this, from Disney to this.
So I'm glad that you said that, because I've been wanting to come to fisticuffs with you about something for a while, and I can't because we agree on all this stuff. So here's actually the first time, at least on the podcast, where I actually disagree. I could not be convinced that Anthony Mackie was, not that he was Takeshi Kovacs, but that he was the same Takeshi Kovacs that we had watched in season 1. And I understand that at the root of this, behind all the acting and the cameras, it's just different human beings. They have different personalities, different tiny, minute minutia or whatever that kind of make who they are. But it felt like, while the name was the same, that people were calling him Kovacs, I couldn't buy that it was the same guy.
And you know what? It might be because I saw season 1 like a year ago.
Maybe.
And you watched it all back to back, right?
I pretty much binged the whole show. Yeah, from starting a few weeks ago, I started on season 1, so it was really fresh.
Right. So
like we jumped from the season 1 finale to the first episode of season 2 in the same sitting. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, so we saw it back to back.
So it may very well be that, the little nuances of these actors and everything kind of, you were able to pick them out easier. Whereas for me, it's been such a long time that I just have to accept. Okay, that was Takeshi. Now here's season 2. This is Takeshi. It could very well be that, and if I'm sure that I might agree with you if I rewatch season 1 again, which I'm going to.
Yeah,
because,
I just thought that I'm just going to call him Riker. I know it's just Kovac and his body, but I'm just going to call him Riker, so we can assume that's season 1 Kovac, and then obviously, you know, Anthony Mackie season 2 Kovac. I thought that Riker, clearly, because he was the first one to do it in the show, set the tone for who Kovac is. You're getting all of Kovac's personality and characteristics and little things, little minutia, all from him, all from his character. And that's fine, but then you better be ready when you kill that character off or re-sleeve him. You better be ready to make sure that whoever's acting as that character in the second season is willing to pick up where he left off.
Yeah.
And I just found there were small differences in, like, I thought Riker was a lot cooler. Mm-hmm. Like, I thought he was just a cooler Kovac. I thought he was a little less caring. I thought he was a little more intense. I thought he was a little more capable as far as, like, the fighting side of him. I also thought he was a little tougher. Whereas I thought Anthony Mackie's Kovac was, well, probably a better actor. I thought that, like, his portrayal of Kovac was a little bit more, it had a little more range to it. I thought that he didn't exactly match up with who Riker's Kovac was, and it bothered me.
I felt like he was angrier.
Yeah, he seemed more spiteful.
Yeah.
He seemed more spiteful, like he was just grumpier.
Yeah.
He was grumpier.
Yeah.
I can agree with that. But it's interesting, and I'm glad you say that because that's a really smart point. I totally went from, I mean, my wife and I sat down, we watched the season finale of season 1, we were hyped up, we were like eating dinner or something, and then I'm pretty sure either right then or a couple hours later, if nothing else, it was certainly the next day, we jumped right into season 2. Mm-hmm. And so it was very much like, this is Kovac, and now totally different person, and I felt that. And honestly, nothing against Anthony Mackie. Great actor. I love him in the Avengers and everything too. I just didn't like his portrayal of Kovac as much as I liked Riker's version of it in season 1.
And I agree.
But that's a big move when you are going to take the main character in a movie and you're going to switch the actor, but you're going to still make them supposedly have the exact same personality. They're supposed to be the same person.
Yeah. And so I wonder
that's pretty bold.
I wonder if Anthony Mackie did any sort of character study on the first season, or if he kind of just jumped into it. Right, yeah, that's what I would think.
He must have. I mean, if nothing else, he watched the show multiple times to try to get that character down and get that backstory. And it's not that it's the most complex character. It's, he's kind of spiteful. He wants revenge. He's a little angry. But I thought that, like, the whole character of Riker and Raylene, Ray, his sister, and at the kind of the finale of season 1 was so intense and so dramatic, and there was so much character in that. And then I felt like it just went away into season 2. It was like that almost never happened. Like all of that, like, anger and history that should have been in this new Kovac, I just didn't get it. I just got, like you said, just a really angry, kind of grumpy dude. And I felt like it was kind of purposeless in the second season, whereas I got it in the first season.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, I feel like he was very mean and hurtful to Poe, who nobody should ever hurt Poe.
I love him.
Yeah,
dude.
Man, he's amazing. And I 100%
such
agree.
Such a cool supporting character. Like, just who he is in the show, but also his acting ability. He's so good.
Yeah, and so... Yeah, I feel like there was no reason for the animosity that he gave to Poe. And it lessened how much I respected Takeshi as a character until the end when they shared that drink together.
Yeah, that was good. It was pretty redeeming, but it's just, I missed it the whole second season. Yeah. And I won't jump ahead to this too much because I still do want to talk about the other characters, but like Poe and Dig, I didn't really get into their chemistry as much as I got into Poe and Lizzie.
Yes.
Like, I would much rather have seen Poe and Lizzie interact. I mean, Lizzie was in it a little bit.
Yeah.
But, dude, it's almost like... kinda. It wasn't even really her.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, barely. Like, just for a little bit of one season. It's almost like something happened between season 1 and season 2 where all the characters, like, went on strike.
Yeah.
And said, we're not coming back. Yeah. Because where the hell... Dude, freaking Ortega, Poe, Lizzie's parents... These are badass characters, and you see them in like a couple minutes of one episode, and it's not even really them. in the circle. It's like just their sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are they doing? They have all these awesome characters they've already created, and they just leave them in the dust.
Now, they were on a completely different planet, weren't they?
Well, I thought they were still supposed to be on Harlan's world. Were they not on Harlan's world in the first one?
I don't remember.
I thought that they were. I thought that they were on Harlan's world in the first season also, because that's where, like, when he came back. So in the beginning, what was the guy's name that asked for his help? Damn, now I can't remember. Like, not Artie. What was his name?
Oh, Axley.
Remember Axley, the guy that basically asked for Kovach's help and offered to re-sleeve him and everything. When he was re-sleeved and Kovach comes back in and they've all been killed by Kel, I think that's when Poe tells him, like, we're on Harlan's world. And it's like, oh, small universe kind of thing, like we're back where we started. And I was okay with that because I was thinking, okay, great, well, we're going to get all the original characters. But we didn't. It was like, other than Kel and Poe, we got, like, nobody from the first season, man.
Now, on that same subject, what did you think of Kel?
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about Kel in this one because she is... It's not that she's not in the first season. And again, this is a season 2 review, but of course you can't... It's so different. It's so contrasting that you have to talk about season 1, so I apologize. But she was... It's not that she wasn't in season 1. It's just that she wasn't the focus in season 1.
She was
Kovach's focus, but Takeshi was the focus of season 1. You know what I mean? His whole ordeal with oh my gosh, what was the, like, main guy whose murder he was trying to solve?
Oh jeez.
The meth. I already can't remember his name. What the hell? But because you don't see him at all in season 2, there's zero reference of him. And Miriam, I think, was his wife. And like, so he was, like, obsessed with her in the first season, but she wasn't really the main character. Right. Kovach was. And in this one, Kel pretty much takes center stage.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the whole season, the plot revolves around Kel Falconer and her I wouldn't say, like, infection, but her, like, having the elder inside of her and, like, kind of trying to contain it. Like, that's the entire plot.
Yeah.
But her herself, just talking about Kel as opposed to the season 1 Kel, she seemed a little softer. And I think they did that on purpose. Like, you wanted to get to know her a little more. Now, obviously, she's like a killer. You know, she's like tearing these people up. Now, physically, yeah, she seemed a little more fragile, like, mentally in this one because she was, like, just kind of lost, I suppose, from being re-sleeved or whatever. But I don't want to just go into this and say, oh, I hated season 2 compared to season 1. So everything I didn't like. I don't want to say I didn't like everything. But I can't help but feel like, and kind of go with my gut here, in that I didn't like Kel quite as much in season 2 either. And it was everything. It was like I didn't really like her chemistry with Kovach as much.
I agree 100%.
I didn't, I don't know. Why didn't I like her as much in season 2? What do you think? What do you think of Kel?
She's an interesting character. I think on paper, she works. And I think on paper, it would have been interesting to get to know her more. But we just don't care. I think that's what it came down to for me. I just didn't care about the character, about either of them, really. And I think it comes down to the fact that they were just angry at the world. They were they were being whiny as opposed to having an emotional reaction to something. Like,
there was more substantial things going on an episode-to-episode basis in the first one that I thought weren't happening in season 2. Yeah. Like, there was one main objective in season 2, and it was to basically figure out what is going on with Kel. The whole objective was find Kel, get her to remember what it is, what you are, what's going on, and then, I don't know, I guess stop the Praetorians or the... And it's like... I think you're onto something there, because I think the reason we didn't like Kel or maybe I'll say the reason why we didn't like Kel as much in season 2 as we did in season 1 is because they made the whole plot revolve around her in season 2, and she's just not an interesting enough character
for us to feel
for
like
the entire plot of the show. Yeah, like for the whole show to just be the Kel Falconer show. She's just not. Like, she has a cool backstory. She's a badass rebel leader, strong feminine character. She was fucking awesome as that in season 1. And season 1 was phenomenal. But then season 2, it's like, okay, we get it. like we know who she is. She's this like rebellion leader, this uprising leader. She's a kind of a hate. She's hated by the protectorate.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of this rebel, and she's a signal. But then they like didn't let that go. It was like shoved down your throat in this second one, and it was like they were forcing you to care about her.
And also, like, they're talking about this rebellion as being this, like, you know, this huge thing, but then we only see rebels in like one episode, and then they're all dead.
Yeah, there's like 10 of them.
Yeah, and so I feel like it would have been interesting to see a little more open warfare in the streets, like urban, and you know, them trying to figure things out and try to escape at the same time that she keeps losing her shit, you know. You know, she keeps going on a murdering spree, and I was like, oh, I guess I gotta go get her again.
So so maybe that's it. Maybe it's that, you know, we're just not impressed by her. Like you were saying, the rebellion is not that significant in this one. The whole plot is supposed to revolve around her. She's kind of forced on you in this one, and I just don't think her character is interesting enough. Her backstory is interesting enough to be like the center focus, the main character of this show.
There was just less gravitas, I guess. You know, there wasn't enough of a driving force for us to care, and every single character was so fragile in this season, and so it just kind of felt like this. Like
it was so much more dramatic,
yeah.
but not dramatic as in like big dramatic ending kind of thing. Dramatic
like
is just like like literal drama.
Yeah.
Like everybody was just all whiny. Like everybody was whiny.
I
this
wish you
season.
cared
Everybody
enough
had their own
about me to
agenda.
live.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
I know. And it was like kind of like you wanted to gag a little
Yeah,
bit.
and
how much time was there? How much time was there between season 1 and season 2? I can look it up if you don't know.
I think it mentioned that it had been 3 years. I want to say.
So not in the show, but like in real life.
Oh.
Like literally how much time was there? But like in real life, when did season 1 come out?
Maybe 2 years.
That sounds right.
I think 2017, 2018.
I'm going to look it up real quick, but I wonder because it seemed like they had a hard time. Yeah, 2018. So a couple years, not super long. I mean, a little long in a TV show sense, but I almost wonder if they didn't even plan on because this is a Netflix original. This is a Netflix original series, right?
Yes,
this is not
based on a book, yeah.
So based on a book,
on a series of books.
I almost
actually.
wonder, right? So I almost wonder if they didn't even plan on doing a season 2, because 2 years in between seasons is kind of a long time.
Yeah.
So I almost wonder if like they didn't really plan on doing a season 2, and then like somewhere along the line they thought enough people watch the show or are watching it now or whatever, let's do a season 2. I'm not sure, because it seemed like they lost, like you said, like different director kind of feel. It seemed like they lost the tone of the first season.
Yeah, I agree.
And I wonder if that's because they waited too long and everything had just kind of changed.
Or if there was some sort of issue with, you know, regarding rights, or
could be
the director wanted more money or something, you know.
Yeah, let's stick into characters for a minute. Another big shift in this show, and I actually thought, and maybe you'll disagree with me on this, and that's perfectly fine, or maybe the listeners or viewers will too. I actually thought a semi-redeeming character switch in this one was Jaeger. Now, I didn't think he was as cool looking in season 2. I thought Jaeger in season 1 was a little more rough looking. He was a little more intimidating, just kind of physically. I thought he kind of looked the part a little better. This guy kind of seemed like a little bit too like pretty boy for me.
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of a theme throughout this show in season 2, is I thought both Kovac and Jaeger were both a little too like pretty boy.
Well, because you have to pay money in order to be pretty.
I guess, yeah, but like Kovac seemed, and maybe it's because of the sleeve, he got re-sleeved in, but he seemed more manicured than like the Riker Kovac did. Like he just, you know, his like he was clean shaven and like his hair was real neat and his hairline looked really good, and like he just had to look like a much cleaner look in this one. And you know, okay, maybe it's that he had like an upgraded sleeve.
I didn't
Riker
think
was
about
supposed to
the
be a pretty
aesthetics.
upgraded sleeve too. But that could be, like you were saying, again, a switch in the directorial choice of this. Like all of the lighting and everything was different.
Absolutely, it was, yeah.
Tonally, it was a very different show. But hold on, because let's talk about Jaeger for a second. What did you think of Jaeger's character in this one as the villain, as opposed to him in season 1?
He felt a little like his power was taken away from him, where he was like this force to be reckoned with in season 1. You know, where he was like, I correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember, but I believe he like physically tortured Kovac in an AI, right?
Oh,
In
hell
season
yeah.
one.
Well, a few people do.
Okay,
That guy, Dimmy, was it Dimmy the twin
that's
or
right.
whatever?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He tortures the shit out of him, dude. And that's like gruesome.
yeah.
But I'm sure there's a point in season one where Jaeger's
But I
torturing
mean, either
somebody.
way,
There's
he
no
was the
way he
one,
didn't.
behind it all, and so it just kind of felt like he had more power, he had more respect. And in this one, you have this governor
He
who,
did.
that whole thing, like that whole, oh god, that whole sequence where she gets her power, where she's like, "Do you guys vote for me? Okay, arrest them all." And then he's just like, "Oh, you did this to yourselves. God, if only you could take back what you just said." And then they just get taken away, and it's
I
like,
know.
really,
I
that's
know.
all it took for her to
Yeah,
just become like the
the
chancellor.
writing took a little bit of a dive. But you're right. You're right. Jaeger definitely seemed like he got his balls chopped off in
Yeah,
this one a little bit. And I think it was because the governor, what was her name? Governor
Harlan,
wasn't Har. What was it?
Governor Harlan. Her dad was Harlan, so she's
Oh yeah, because she was Harlan's daughter,
yeah,
but she didn't. Yeah, that's what they called her, right?
yeah.
They called her. That's right. That's right. Yeah, Danica.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't it Danica? Okay, yeah. So she obviously there was kind of this power struggle between Jaeger and Danica Harlan, but it ended up just making both of them seem kind of weak
Yeah.
in this one. Like it was like every episode was shifting back between this power seesaw, like who's in control. Jaeger definitely seemed more intellectual to me
Yes.
in this one. Like he was more thought out, he was more calculated. But I don't care. I didn't really want him to be that because he was less intimidating that
Yeah.
way. Because he didn't have actual power to back that up. You know what I mean? Like he tortures that girl a little bit.
And it does nothing.
He like
to
pulls
her.
her teeth out, but it does nothing.
Yeah.
Then because then Harlan comes in and just Governor Harlan comes in and takes her away
And
then
straps her to
blows
a
her up on a rocket. Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah,
intense.
that was crazy. But I felt like this season very much lacked a strong villain, and that will kill a movie, that will
Well,
kill a TV show.
I feel like when you have a villain in the first season that is basically a rapist and a sex trafficker, and then you go to, and I mean that season one was dark when it came to that. Like,
Oh
holy
man,
shit, man! And then you go and the biggest villain is like, I just want to be in power. Like it loses a lot of its oomph and a lot of it.
right?
I feel like the entire season just took a step down on like story power, and we were
Yeah,
just like, okay, like I don't know, it just didn't really make us feel like they were as villain. It felt like a traditional, typical political power story versus like some
right.
dark futuristic world where like these guys need to be killed. And we sided with
Yeah,
Takeshi in the first one, but in this one we're like, why are you being so broody?
yeah, and I'm glad you say that because this one to me lost a lot of that sci-fi element. This season,
Yeah,
season two felt way less. It took a step down in the sci-fi element and was much more political. Like this was borderline like House of
yeah,
Cards, whereas season one is very much like you're learning about the stacks and you're seeing how
intricate. Yeah,
people are re-sleeved and they're looking at the meths and how they live in like this society and these drugs, and there was just so much more. Like you said, there was just so much. It was just such a higher level of intricacy
yeah.
in season one that we lost in season two.
Season two felt like 100 years in the future, whereas season one felt like 600 years in the future.
I'll absolutely agree with that.
And
I'll
yeah, and like
absolutely agree with that.
there was more of that drug use in season one where they're like putting the shit in their eyes and
Well, okay, so tonally, and that's part of the tone shift.
yeah,
But again, and I think part of that comes from the character choices. But I think overall, and God, I feel like I'm like negative on every way about this season two. And I liked season two. I just did not like it as much as season
yeah.
one. But just to kind of continue on with the characters and how they were different in season two, what did you think of Poe? And I guess Poe and Dig, since they're kind of a 2-in-1 here in season
Yeah.
two.
I still love Poe, and here's the thing. I liked Poe so much in season one that the fact that he's fragile in this one and that he's broken makes me like him more. And I feel for his character almost like in like a sad puppy in the rain kind of a sense. Like I want his character to be okay. And so I didn't mind that he was glitching all the time. And in fact, I felt bad for him when he got berated for that. And I did feel like he was a lot more badass and a lot more powerful in the first one. You know, like where people came into his place and then like machine guns came out of the ceiling, and in this one he again also felt like he had all of his power stripped from him, but I didn't hold it against the show for him for his character specifically because I feel like it fit with what was happening to his character arc, whereas everybody else's character arc felt like a step down. Poe felt like a fallen angel. Everybody else felt like they were just like, and we're going to put you here. And I think that's the difference.
I will agree with that, but I will say that I didn't mind Poe kind of being a diminished version of himself, being kind of glitched out. He has a virus. I didn't mind that. But what I did mind, and what I thought really hurt season 2 as well, is that for almost the entire season, Poe is on a completely separate story arc than the rest of the group. He's like trying to go with Dig and fix these things, and I just felt like they lack something when they separate Poe from Takashi and the rest of the crew so much, whereas he was so integral in the first season, and he was right there, he was present. The Raven or the Nevermore, the Raven Hotel was always kind of this home base that they would come back to at multiple points in every season, and Poe was there, and he was in every episode, and they were all talking to each other, whereas in this one, it was like there were, I think, multiple episodes where Poe and Kovacs didn't even talk to each other.
I agree.
Like, there was zero interaction between the two of them, and I thought that really sucked.
I
thought that was such a cool part of season 1.
I wonder if it's because people liked his character so much that they tried to kind of elevate his status a little and give him his own scenes, and I think that took away from the story.
Yeah, I think it's just bad writing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was bad writing to have his plot be like, I'm going to go and I don't want to reboot because I don't want to lose my memories. Like, I liked that because it gave some emotional aspect to the season. I was okay with that. But I didn't like how it was like, we're just going to have this kind of cheesy fight that the old Kovacs probably never would have had, especially after everything that happened. Riker's Kovacs, I don't think ever would have had that fight with Poe. And now we're going to have this cheesy fight where we basically just separate from each other for the whole season, and then we're going to make up at the end. Like, I didn't like that, man. I didn't like
what
that.
I did like was when he was trapped in that construct, and then he just infected the entire thing with his virus.
Cool.
That was... You all right there, bud?
Oh, Marceline.
Just turn into a cat for a moment, just have a hairball.
Yep, just hack it up right on the podcast.
She totally perked up when I said B-A-L-L. She was like,
She's like, what? I agree. He was cool when he was like infecting stuff. And it was weird though, because it's like, is this character weaker or not?
Yeah.
Is he like an infected, weaker version of himself or not? I just, man, I hate to say it, but for such a good show that this was in season 1, I think it stepped down in almost every aspect in season 2.
It absolutely, definitely the cinematography took a step down. The writing took a step down. The character development took a step down. My interest level just definitely went down. I just
definitely.
Hey man,
definitely.
You're running
just
into
the plot.
Like everything right now. Do you understand that?
She wants to be part of the podcast, man.
That?
Let her be part of this podcast. Unbelievable. But it did. It totally did. She's like, nope.
She lifted her paw. She was like, I absolutely. I think that there was a different director and new writers. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. So, and then just kind of to finish off the character part of this, I wasn't interested in Dig at all.
Not really,
I wasn't interested in her character. I thought she was kind of boring. I kind of honestly thought the show would have been a little bit better without her.
Yeah, I didn't dislike her, but I was like, okay. Like, whatever.
I disliked her, man. I didn't like her character. I thought, why even have her? Where's Lizzie? I thought she was just a fill-in for the character that Lizzie should have been in this season. I don't know. I just really lost me with the character.
Which is bizarre because you were able to bring the actress in, so why not? Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Why not use her if you've got her? We loved her in season 1. She was a great character, but I don't know. I didn't like the Dig character. I thought that was who Lizzie should have been and who Lizzie would have been a better version of. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they would purposefully weaken the show. But, okay, so character-wise, that's pretty much all of the big characters. I mean, Kovacs himself, the Kovacs version of Kovacs, he was okay in this. I mean, he's obviously the same actor, so you buy into him, no problem, and he was fine. I liked that they were able to persuade him. I thought that was actually the only pretty cool part of that season, how they brought in original Kovacs as his own character.
Yeah, as a clone.
He was kind of double-sleeved. Yeah, the clone, and then he kind of falls for Kel and that cause
I did
too.
feel like they took his power away too. You know, like he's this like
Of course. They
badass
gave
in the
all
first
the
one.
power. Yeah, they gave all the power to Kel
Yeah.
in this one. It was like, we want Kel to be the focus of this season. And okay, I mean, bold move. I don't think it paid off.
Yeah.
But it was basically, we're going to give Kel all the power in this season, and you're gonna like it. You're gonna be forced to like it.
I just feel like they wasted every actor's ability to deliver a strong performance by giving them these weak characters. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
I missed the characters from season one. That's what I was feeling. I missed Riker. I missed Ortega. I missed Lizzie and family. Even if her mom was still like the male sleeve version of her. I thought that was hilarious in season one. But I missed the characters. I missed the villains. Even kind of I don't even call them villains, but the guy who was murdered in season one. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. But the guy who was murdered in season one and kind of the original Meths. I just missed the characters from the first season. I thought they just diminished. They took a step down.
Although I will say, it was really cool, and you may not know what I'm talking about, but it was really, really cool to see Michael Shanks, who is the guy that hires him in the beginning of season 2, who's like, he says, I'll give you a new sleeve. That guy, he is from Stargate SG-1. He plays Dr. Daniel Jackson, and he is one of my favorite actors, and it was really cool to see him, and then he just died within like 2 minutes after his performance. I was like, what the hell? Why pay for an actor like him? Anyways.
Let's talk about the tone of this show, because that's another thing that changed dramatically. This is kind of where I come from when I say it almost feels like you're watching a different show, because tonally this one is way, way different. So I'm very opinionated about this, but let me hear what you think about the tone of season 2 and kind of how it changed, and if you liked it, didn't like it, what do you think?
Season 1 felt like a film noir, and you already said it felt like a detective show, like a murder mystery. Yeah. The cinematography was just so much better, and it really gave you this feeling of this like dark, decrepit future world. Where these terrible things happen, and there's this, separation in caste systems, and I felt like the world was just painted in a much better way, and not necessarily a positive way, but just like that it was built better. And in this one, everything just kind of lacked that same luster of world development, I guess. I didn't care to see more of this world, whereas in the first season I did. I wanted to know what else there was. Other than that, it really just, it feels like a new crew stepped in and tried to build on a substantially better season.
So I don't know why they did this. And I know what they did, and I want to go into what they did, or in my opinion, they did that diminished season 2. But I don't know why they did this. But to me, it seems like they just completely chickened out on going into like some of the darker aspects of season 1 and carrying them into season 2.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why, because there were a couple things in season 1 that I think are, love it or hate them, I think are what made the show what it was. Number 1, the nudity, first of all. So when you watch season 1, one thing that stood out to me when I was watching it, I was like, holy shit, this show like does not shy away from the human body at all. It's like they basically told every character they were casting in that show, hey, you have to be comfortable with being fully naked on camera. Every character. There was not a character, even damn it, I need to look up the guy's name because I keep talking about him. The main meth whose murder you're trying to solve in season 1. I cannot believe I'm trying to remember his name. Even him. You even see his like soft wiener when he walks out of like some clone tank. It's like ridiculous. But dude, every character you basically was nude at some point, and it made the show it did a couple of things for the show. Number 1, yes, it made it sexier. It was more adult. There was a lot of sex in the first episode. Some obviously really fucked up stuff with sex. That obviously like at the end, like the murder and stuff, that's in the prostitution. But even that, it made the show way darker.
Yeah.
But another thing that having that kind of nudity in the show does, it did a really good job of portraying that the human body was kind of meaningless in this show, and that's exactly what they're trying to go for. Like, the human body is a sleeve. Even just the word or the term sleeve, they put so little emphasis on the human body. Exactly. Yeah. If you have money, you can buy a new buff one or a really sexy one or really fit one or whatever. Like, they did such a good job in season 1 through the use of, and probably overuse, but through the use of nudity to make sure you knew that these are just sleeves. Like, they're talking about, they'll have like a really attractive woman and she's naked and it's like an ad and she's like, put your wife in this sleeve, and they'll have some really buff dude and it'll, put your husband in whatever. Like, the use of nudity in season 1, while some people may have thought it was too much, I actually thought is kind of what helped set up a very important aspect of that show, and that is the diminished value of the human body, the diminished value of these characters being physical and more so being like they're a character. Mm-hmm. Like, they put so much more emphasis on the stacks in season 1, and it felt so much more intense when somebody got their stack shot out and they were a real death. It was like, oh man, like that's them, because you didn't care so much about their bodies, because bodies were just kind of being thrown at you in season 1. Everybody was nude, everybody was having sex, there was prostitution, there was drug use, and it was like, okay, it felt almost more real. Like, if this were this dystopian cyberpunk kind of society, this is really how it would be going on. Rich people would be buying super attractive sleeves, or they'd be buying their significant other these sleeves, but they didn't shy away from that in season 1. It was like, okay, we're going to take this nudity, and not only are we going to make the show sexier with it, we're going to make it more real and more visceral by showing... Exactly, and it said something very serious in the tone. And in the second season, and look, I get it. Oh, you just wanted to see more naked chicks or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. It's honestly not. The lack of nudity in season 2, although it's a weird point to bring up, I think it actually diminishes the tone of the show.
I was actually going to bring that up too, yeah.
It puts so much more emphasis on the bodies of these people, and it takes away from like who their characters are, who their whose conscious is in that sleeve. It like took some of that away. So, let me know what you think in the comments, because I know that's a really weird point to harp on. It's just, I have more, but it's just a weird point that like the lack of nudity in season 2. And yes, like, would it have been interesting to see like a sexier season 2? Sure. Okay, whatever. But also, I really think that they put so little emphasis on the body in season 1, and it really played into the story they were trying, the character development or the world development, like you said, of the story they were trying to put together in season 1. So that is one thing that they really chickened out on in season 2 that I think hurt the show.
And I agree. And on that same note, I think that it comes down to two things. One, I got multiple people telling me that, hey, the second book is completely different from the first book. It's a completely different tone. And I was like, okay. So I was mentally prepared for a shift, but it doesn't feel like a shift. It feels like they were trying to reach that same tone and didn't accomplish it. It doesn't feel like they were trying to do something different. And on that same note,
said.
That you're mentioning about the nudity, you're right, because there's like a brief moment of nudity, and then they don't show it, and then it's like they're trying to do it, where like the governor is fucking that guy, and then he's like, oh, I'll put the sleeve back when we're done. Like, they were trying to touch on that same level of like the body doesn't matter, but not at all on that same caliber.
It would have made sense to me to see season 1 have like no nudity. It would have made more sense to me if season 1 had been season 2 and season 2 had been season 1. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but it's like,
because it would have grown into it.
Who are you trying to kid? Like, everybody who's watching season 2 of this show already watched season 1. Mm-hmm. So no one's going to watch season 2 if they were offended by anything that happened in season 1. It's just not going to happen. So don't shy away from it. It's kind of what makes that show unique. Like, that show... Dude, that show had more like sexual references and like nudity and drug use and gore and stuff than almost any show I've watched in a long, long time. So, okay, that's your niche. That's what your show is. Some people are going to, it's polarizing, sure, but don't shy away from it. Because then all the people that loved it in season 1 and now are watching season 2 are going to hate season 2. And all the people that hated it in season 1 aren't even watching season 2. So they basically just screw themselves. They back themselves into a corner. And I know that's a weird point to harp on like this, but I really think it did something tonally for the show in a very negative way.
Yeah, no, 100% agreed.
And then not then to get off of like the nudity a little bit, just talk about like what do you think about just the darkness of the show overall? Because I feel like again this was such a dark show in season 1, and then it was just kind of they chickened out a little bit in season 2. It just didn't feel like that.
I agree. There wasn't any of that impending doom or that blasé attitude that rich people had in the first one, where they're like, well, money can buy me anything, even any type of sexual fantasy that I could want. It just that level of greed and lack of care for humanity. That lack of humanity, really, that made all of these people in season 1 so sick. And we are. I have a cat again, and made it so satisfying to watch Takeshi take them out. You didn't get that in this one, to the point where even at the end he was like, "Hey," to the governor, like, "Let's work together. We can talk to the elder." Like, we're like, "No, man! Like, fucking kill her! Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah, like blow her stack out, dude, and be done with it. Like, that's so not Riker. That's not Riker, man.
It just they tried. I don't know if it had something to do with the writing, or if they got too many complaints, or if Netflix tried to shift in a different direction, or what it is, but absolutely 100%. Season 1 was so much better because it was more visceral. It was more engaging because of that darkness that the season 1 had. That it made the villains more villainous. It made the world darker, and it made us just more afraid and connect with the characters more, because we didn't know what was going to happen to them. Whereas in this one, he could just summon guns to him now. Like, I don't know. It just, everything.
Yeah, did you ever once in season 2 honestly think that Kovacs was in any real danger?
Not at all.
Like, did you ever feel like he was going to die or anything?
No.
Because I did not at all, but in season 1 I 100% did.
Yeah, exactly. And to the point where even after he died, and at the end of season 2, I was like, he's coming back. Right. I was like, he's going to come back, watch. And then 5 minutes later, you have...
Well, and... Yeah, you make an interesting point, too. I wonder if, and maybe we need to look more into this, or maybe one of the viewers, if you guys have any information in this, please let us know in the comments, because I'm actually kind of dying to know. Maybe Netflix did step in and say there was some sort of ratings change and we can't have content this dark, or something happened because, man, I mean, I'm trying to think of other content that's on Netflix. They have to have other, like, gory, intense stuff on there.
I wonder... But
it just felt like... It felt like Altered Carbon Season 1 was so just like rated M for mature, and this one was like PG-13.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know, it just lost
me.
I
wonder if it had something to do with Altered Carbon Season 1 trying to compete with Game of Thrones, and now that Game of Thrones is done, they didn't feel like they needed to take it to that level of like an adult audience.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, this is all just speculation. Yeah. I don't know, but all that's not speculation is that there was a major tonal shift from a very dark, very intense, graphic, gory, sexy show, and then it turned into this just sort of mediocre, kind of unafraid, bland. I think is kind of I think if I had to sum up the tone of season 2 in one word, it probably would be bland.
Yeah.
And I know that that's kind of harsh, but it just kind of felt that way. I didn't feel driven towards the next episode like I did in season 1.
It just felt like a mediocre sci-fi, like something you would see on Sci-Fi Channel, as opposed to what season 1 was, which was like this kind of groundbreaking cyberpunk, mystery show that, completely enthralled you as an audience. And
one character that we didn't talk out that I just feel like we're kind of, it wouldn't be fair if we didn't, was the cyborg girl who had the coils.
Yes.
Basically the mom.
Yeah.
In that one.
What was her name?
Let me look it up.
But I agree. I feel like we need to talk about her because she was absolutely a main character. I liked that.
Bancroft was the guy's name in the first one.
Bancroft.
Lawrence Bancroft. Thank you. And Miriam Bancroft was his wife. Yep, that's it. Trep was the girl's name, right, with the coils.
I thought that it was badass that she was not only a female bounty hunter, but that she was the best bounty hunter. And so it gave a little power, to females, especially in a world like this one where, sexual deviancy and some of the shit that we saw in season 1, man.
Right.
You know,
Well, right, but that's what the show is. Like, yes, it's intense, and yes, it's polarizing, and yes, some people are going to hate it, but that's what the show
absolutely.
is. Don't take
Yeah,
that away from season 2. Trep, she was actually the only character they added in season 2 that I actually liked. I liked her. Was she supposed to be like a cyborg, like half like humanoid kind of? What were the coils?
They allowed her to like tap into the network at times. I think basically
Right.
she had like a police scanner built in to her brain.
Okay. I gotcha.
And I think she
so it's
put
not
it
that
in
she
there
was
herself.
necessarily like a cyborg, but okay, yeah, she like installed him. I get it. She was the only character in season 2 that I actually liked. I was okay with her. She was pretty cool, and I liked that she was a lesbian, and I liked that she had a kid. I liked her character. She was cool. But yeah, so going back to just kind of the overarching tone and everything, I think we're kind of on the same page here, and I would assume that most of the viewers are. It went from a very dark, visceral, intense show to kind of a, like you said, mediocre sci-fi. I think unfortunately that really sums it up. It turned into a mediocre sci-fi.
There's one character that I want to talk about, and I want to get your opinion on.
Okay.
What did you think of the Elder?
Dude, I kind of wish we'd seen more of him in his like true form. He was like this Mothra, Cthulhu kind of crazy ass thing. He was cool.
I feel like there is,
again, we only saw him for a second.
I feel like there's such an interesting level of storytelling when it comes to the Elder, because if it wasn't for whoever these people are, whoever this race of beings are, they wouldn't have stacks. They've mentioned multiple times that the reason they were able to make stacks is because they found Elder artifacts and they melted them down to create this rare alloy that they had never seen before that allowed for a new level of technology in the same way that like the silicon microchip did for our computers. It allowed for a new type of machinery, a new type of technology that they didn't have access to before. And then you have the angel fire in the sky, this technology that defends the planet, but they have no idea how it works. And those trees, the song spire, like it's just I wanted to see more of them. Trees.
Yeah, they definitely went into that more in this season. But is it wrong that I was kind of rooting for the Elder?
No, absolutely.
Like I just couldn't help, but it was like, dude, like so these what do you call them? Like Harlan and all the people that like
the founders,
not elders. Founders. So all of these founders come down. They find Harlan's world, and they basically try to pretend that there wasn't life here. Like it's kind of the Elder kind of has a right to be pissed. Like they come in, they harvest everything in his planet. They basically fuck the whole thing up, and then we're supposed to be like on Kovach's side when he's trying to kill the Elder. Like, and does he kill it? Does he like contain it? I guess I don't know, but like I don't know, man. This is like the Avatar movie. Like when you watch it from the point of the Elder, you're kind of like, well, dude, I'd be pissed too.
It's genocide.
Like these people came down. Yeah, like they committed genocide against my like race or my trees or whatever, and have now tried to like create a civilization on my planet and are like raping the natural world all around it. Like I was kind of on the Elder side. I wasn't really rooting for Kovach and them to beat him because I kind of felt for him.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
He seemed more justified than any other characters in this.
It was
season.
like a creature backed into a corner. Like it was doing what it needed to.
Yeah.
Which I thought was an interesting plot point, to have this thing in Kel, but if only the rest of the story was as strong.
So let's finish it up by talking about the plot, because that really is kind of the big thing. So let's just talk about the plot of season 2, and then of course as a comparison to season 1. Season 1, the whole plot was sort of this murder mystery. They kind of brought in the Songspire trees. They were sort of a mystery, kind of that what do you call it, a MacGuffin or whatever. Like so where you kind of were just led on by that, but you didn't that they were relevant. You didn't really know how, but it was kind of interesting to not know how. And then season 2, the plot is very much now it's all about Kel. We're trying to figure out, she's trying to figure out who she is, and then the last few episodes are her and this weapon, which is the Elder inside of her. What did you think of the plot overall?
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was. I was totally on board when in episode 1 he goes back into his brain to like try to remember who stabbed him, and then he sees her, and then she doesn't remember herself. I was like, okay, I'm on board. This is cool. Let me get a little used to the characters or whatever. But then it just kind of started to go downhill, where it became this melodrama about these two people, that for whatever reason couldn't figure out how to live harmoniously. Like I don't know. It just, for me, the idea that like I'm such a good killer that I can't have a natural, and productive life. It just felt so melodramatic, and it kind of feels like that super soldier that can't leave. The same thing I had with Gemini Man. It's,
Yeah.
you
The
know,
haunted past
yeah,
soldier
like I
who
get
can't
it,
love. She's too hardened to love.
but there's all these worlds that you could travel to. I don't know. It just everything felt a little convoluted.
Yeah, I agree. I kept waiting in the first few episodes of season 2 for the plot to kind of feel more like season 1.
Yeah, same.
I kept waiting for it to be more of this kind of like not murder mystery because I knew that was going to be done, but I kind of waited for it to be more of this like I thought Kel was going to be evil, like truly evil, and I thought she was going to be the bad guy and then that was going to be the finale, was getting her back somehow. And I kind of wish they'd kept that up
Yes.
because they Kel in the first couple episodes, she's a beast. She's killing everybody. She's really dangerous. I liked that. I was okay with that. I'm like, okay, Kel is the bad guy. Who took over Kel? Who's in her sleeve? This is the new mystery in
Yeah.
season 2. But then he gets Kel back in like the third episode.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she's kind of weakened. And then the whole thing is, oh, I need to find my elder self, blah, blah, blah. And I thought that lost me. I was very much hoping it was going to be Kel is the bad guy, but it's not actually Kel. We're trying to figure out, the mystery is who's in her sleeve. And I was like, damn, this is going to be cool. Like, this is very season 1-esque. Let's keep that going. They didn't.
It would have been,
Kel.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, like Kel, they had her back so quickly, and then the whole plot changed. It was like that was gone.
I just feel like it would have been more interesting to have Kel have a little more power against the government in this season, and like see more of that battling, and put her in danger more while maintaining that level of secrecy where we don't know who or what she is, and then have some sort of climax where there's this big battle, and maybe Kovac is the one that has to put her down, and I feel like they totally copped out with what could have been a good climax by having her come to his side and then lose all of her power. And then after he had her on his side, I didn't feel like at any moment she was going to kill him.
No, I didn't either.
Suddenly she's kind of in control. Like, I don't know. It was just bizarre. Marcy?
Yeah,
No.
I didn't love it. I didn't love it. So, I mean, yeah, and that's pretty much all there is to say. We could continue on. I think we'll kind of just be restating the same points. Do you have anything else really for Altered Carbon Season 2?
What do you think of the way it ended? Do you feel like that was a cop-out?
Dude, I'm actually glad you said that because I don't know if we're going to get a Season 3.
There is
I'm
a
not
third
really
book.
sure if that's going to... Okay, so maybe we will. I'm as sad as it is to say, I'm not super excited for it.
Yeah,
even
I mean,
if
I'll
we
watch
do.
it because I'm interested, but
Yeah,
I'm not expecting big things from it.
No, me neither. And I was expecting such big things for Season 2, and it's sad that now we're not expecting anything really for Season 3. The ending was predictable, honestly. I'm not trying to sound cool or smart or whatever. I'm normally really bad at predicting movies. But dude, me and my wife were sitting there on the couch watching this thing, eating food, and like we're basically calling what's gonna happen. We're like, he's gonna kill Jaeger, the Elder's gonna go into him, then he's gonna have control or whatever. Like it was just we saw right through it, man. We saw right through it. It felt very predictable.
What's annoying to me is that the entire season was built around Kovac trying to find Kel. And not even this season, but all of the last season too, he has to find her.
Yeah.
And now he finds her, and then he's dead, and now she is gone, and she's like, I'll never forget you, and now they're lost from each other again, and now he's alive, and it's just like, I don't know, I was more excited at the fact that Poe came back than that Kovac was still alive. I was more happy that, like, yeah, Poe's remembering shit.
Same. Yep, agreed. It, man, it stinks because season 1 was such a different, interesting show. It stinks to be given this kind of review for it, but what do you think? Would you recommend season 2 specifically to somebody who watched season 1? But I guess, would you recommend the whole show overall? What are your thoughts on Altered Carbon?
I would, if you have the stomach for a dark show, I would say on the same level, if not on a darker level than Game of Thrones, and you're into that futuristic world, and you are willing to put up with some heavy story, and not as far as, like, I mean heavy in the sense that there's like a lot of politics involved. Like, if you liked the Phantom Menace and all of the politics involved in Phantom Menace and the intricacies of intergalactic trade, then like this is probably a good show for you. Like, for some people, this stuff is just super boring to them, the politics and the mystery and all that. But I love it. I like a dark and deep story that keeps you guessing. I really dig that. On top of the fact that it's this, futuristic sci-fi world that is very well constructed. I absolutely would recommend, if you've never seen Altered Carbon, watch season 1. If you saw season 1 and you liked it, watch season 2. Season 2 forward, I would still recommend, I would still say, like, I hope that there's a season 3 because I'm invested enough in the story that I want to know how it ends. I want that happy ending for them, which is probably not going to happen knowing how the stories in this show go. But I want a conclusion. It doesn't feel like there is a conclusion. I don't feel like the tyranny of the government has been taken apart and, like, everything's fine. Like, there's still rebellion. And I want to see how all of that ends and what's going to happen to these characters that are, at this point, hundreds of years old.
Right.
And so
even the rebellion, man, it's like at the end she's like, the rebellion here is spent. I got to go to another planet and restart it. I was like, well, okay.
And they're going to call it the Resistance this time. So
versus the Empire.
I would recommend the show if you've never seen it. I would recommend watching this season. I would recommend a season 3 if it happens. But I would say you have to go into each season with different expectations and kind of like almost like you're watching new actors. Yeah. I liked it. It was entertaining. It kept me intrigued, but it was predictable and nowhere near as good as the first one for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, most of the people, if you're watching this long of a review on the show, I guess us recommending it or not is not really the right rating for it. So maybe we'll think of something better for TV shows. But I, unfortunately, really didn't care for season 2. So much so that I would be on the fence about even watching a season 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, because once you get 2 seasons invested in a show, you want to see what happens. But in every major way, to me, as much as I hate to say this show took a step down. Mm-hmm. It really did. I thought the characters were worse. The plot was worse. Just the tone of it all was worse. Man, and I hate to say it because I really liked season 1. So if you have watched season 1 and for some reason you're watching this as just a long format discussion about season 2 before seeing it, I would say watch it. Obviously, I would give you a disclaimer that it's not as good, I don't think, but just understand it's very different. And a lot of the reasons I personally really liked season 1 don't carry over into season 2. So that's it. Chris, you got anything else for season 2 of Altered Carbon?
I don't. I'm going to go slip into my new sleeve.
Yep.
It's
go into the neural network.
Yep. I've got an AI. That's it. That's all I got.
That's it. Yeah, that's it, man. So that is the Critic and the Comment Man review of Altered Carbon Season 2. Unfortunately, not the most positive review, but hey, it's an honest review like all of them are. So that was it. Episode 5 is in the books. That was Space Force. Really fun new show. We really liked it. Looking forward to Season 2 if the actual Space Force doesn't shut it down. And Altered Carbon Season 2, kind of a letdown there, but interesting show nonetheless. So that's it. Chris, take us out of here. Critic and the Common Man, episode 5.
And we're out.